Hey guys, Becky with Design Bundles here, and I'm super excited to have you join me today because we have a really hot item for you. Today we're talking about Spiral Betty designs. Alright guys, so I'm starting out this project on a really fun website. It's called spiralbetty.com. And it really is very basic, very straightforward. There's not a lot of complicated things about it. You're just going to click right here to upload image. And then of course you can select any image that you want. So I'm going to start with this little sloth clip art that I downloaded. And that's because I have a really fun song that I'm going to use for this project that I used to enjoy with my daughter. So you can, of course, come in here and do a little bit of cropping down to where you want it to be. Like if I just wanted it to be the face, I can do that. I'm going to leave it as the entire design. And I'm just going to choose the check mark here. And then basically what happens, happens. Now, I do like about the 75%, but you can scale this down to make your lines thicker, and you can scale it up to make your lines thinner. So a lot of that depends on how large of a project you're working with. I'm going to leave mine about right there. You can also change the scale. You can change the lightness. And you can change the contrast. Okay, now I leave all of that at the default, so I don't change that a whole lot. There are also different colors down here at the bottom. When you first come, you may start out with these colors here, but you can come down to the bottom and you do want to choose the black and white. So where I'm going with this is basically you want to adjust the rings. You do want it to be able to recognize your picture when you look at it, but try not to go too small and try not to go too large. Too large just means that it distorts your pictures more than necessary, and too small means that you'll have a harder time weeding it, okay? Now, I'm doing this project with heat transfer vinyl, so I don't have to worry as much about weeding, but if you're doing this with adhesive vinyl, then definitely weeding will be a pretty big concern. So I'm going to leave this around the 75% or the 3/4 mark here, and I'm just going to leave the scale, the lightness, and the contrast as they are. So the next thing I want to do right here is I'm just going to click that little download button, and it's going to tell me, and this is very important, okay? Spiral Betty is free for personal use, but if you're going to make these for projects to sell or use in any type of commercial format, then you do want to come down here and take a look at the commercial options. All right, now of course they do have a crafter's license, $25. Guys, I'll be honest with you, I'm not affiliated with Spiral Betty in any way, but $25 for a 1-year license is really, it's a fantastic rate. And if you're just going to do, one or two, then obviously you can come down here and pay per download. Okay. But I'm just using this for personal use. So I'm going to just hit download, and it downloads it as a JPEG image. All right. So there we go. So now the next thing I want to do is go over to Silhouette Studio. And once I'm in Silhouette Studio, this is just a file explorer window so that I can drag and drop my design over here. And then I'm going to use the tracing feature. Now for the tracing, what I'm going to do is I am going to scale this guy down just a little bit. It doesn't have to be too much. I just want him to fit all in one window. All right, there we go. So then I'm going to open my tracing panel, choose Select Trace Area, and I'm going to incorporate the entire design. Now, what's important here is I really want to pay attention to what fills in yellow. I'm going to bring my scale all the way down to 4, and I'm going to increase my threshold. Oh, I'm going to say almost to the top. You obviously don't want to go all the way, but I'm going to do 99%, and then I'm going to choose Trace. So now I can delete out the original image. And once I fill this in with black, and I can change the line to transparent. There we go. And then of course I can size it accordingly. Now you may want to be a little patient with your design because, or rather with the software, because there's a lot of detail and stuff going on with this image. So I'm just going to move it and I'm going to go ahead and draw a rectangle. That way I can size down this to fit the project that I'm working with, and kind of get it out of the way, if that makes sense. Because we're going to bring in another file to complete this project. So I'm going to make my rectangle 8 inches wide and 10 inches high. I'm working with an 8 by 10 canvas. Let's go ahead and just put that right in the middle. And let's size this down. Let's see what happens at 7. Now this is not a perfect circle, and that's because, as you can see down here, the line cuts off. So what that means is you don't have that extra part that comes down on the bottom. That's okay, but it is pretty close to a perfect circle. All right, that's still, that's pretty good. So let's see what else we're gonna add to this. So back over here in my File Explorer window, I'm going to open my music template player. Now this is a design that I purchased from Design Bundles. I want the SVG file. And again, I can just drag and drop it over. So I can get rid of this part. This part was intended for a picture. What I want to keep is this part right here. I can bring this in here, and then I want to size it. So now I can go ahead and scale down my Spiral Betty design a little bit. There we go. What about 6.5? I think that's going to be a good size, 6.5. I'm going to use my Align tool. I don't know if you saw in the beginning, but I did go ahead and use the Align to Center on the rectangle. So as long as I'm using my Align tool, then it will align this completely. So what I'm going to do is just make this a little smaller and go ahead and center align this also. Let's see if we can make this 6.5, and then they'll be the same size. Okay, so what we need to do is switch out the song title and artist name. Now, like I said, I've grabbed this from YouTube. So let's go ahead and again fill these in black. I am cutting this from black heat transfer vinyl. In particular, I'm using black Easy Weed. And I need to choose a thicker font. I think I can just bold this one. Okay, there we go. So let's size it down a little bit. Let's see how it's going to compare. So now this doesn't have to be exact. I'm just trying to get it to a similar size. Now this is sized at 31.74, so I'm going to remember that because I actually need to make this a little larger. Okay, and then let's type that back in, 31.74. There we go. That way it's all on one line. I don't know if you saw that, but it had expanded down to a second line. And we're going to ungroup this. So I can overlap those, and then I can come in here and delete the ones that I don't want. Okay, now I am going to, let's grab that part of the design down at the bottom. Let's ungroup, well, let's go ahead and make it smaller, and then ungroup it. So we're going to group the middle part together, and the outside is already grouped together. So I'm just going to move it over, and then I can center this one here. All right, now why did I do that? Because that, it was looking a little crowded. So what I can do is now just move this whole entire thing down. Okay, so there we go. So not bad at all. We can now remove the rectangle. The rectangle was only ever for the actual sizing of it. And then we can group all of this together. And then I'm going to right click and choose the flip horizontally. Now, of course, I'm doing all of this in Silhouette Studio, but guys, you can easily do this in whatever cutting software you have, okay? Okay, one other little thing that I didn't catch, I don't want my heart and my text to overlap. So I'm gonna ungroup those again, and I'm just gonna move that heart down. So now let's talk about cut settings. I'm cutting this out of Stahl's Ultra Weed. So what that means is I'm gonna go and click over the send panel. I'm going to slide this guy up to the top left-hand corner. And then for my material type, I'm going to choose Heat Transfer Smooth. Now with Stahl's Ultra Weed, those default settings should work just fine. But it never hurts to go ahead and do a test cut either, so be sure to keep that in mind. Now I'm going to go ahead and head over to my Cameo and let this cut. It should take a little while because there's so much detail in the Spiral Betty design, but I will reconvene with you guys after the cutting so that you can see the weeding process, okay? All right, guys, so let's talk about what we have here. This is our cut heat transfer vinyl. I don't know how well you can see, but we got some really awesome cut lines on there to help us with our weeding. This is our canvas. This is just a canvas panel, 8x10, just like we talked about. This is just a little pressing pillow to press on. Of course, I've got my Easy Press heating up, and I have a pair of fine point weeding tweezers. And I just want to say, this is what happens when you weed it the wrong way. So I wanted to show you guys my example because it does happen. So we do want to pay really good attention when we're weeding this out. Now, I believe where I went wrong was not picking the right area to begin with. So what I mean by that is my little tail here, which is the end of my design. Now I want to tell you, part of the reason why these are so frustrating to mess up, not only is it the waste of material, but this took me, in this size, took me half an hour of cutting time. All right, so it is definitely frustrating, you know, when you have this type of error, but I'm going to go ahead and weed it out the correct way this time. And all you're going to do is just to keep pulling, and it will work its way around your design. Now, once you get a pretty good start on it, you will just be able to keep pulling and winding around your hand. But until then, you might have to help it a little bit. And also make sure that you keep a little craft knife handy. If you run into any little snags, you can use that craft knife to, you know, kind of trim off any pieces that you need to. All right, guys, so this is our sloth. All right, turned out super, super cute. Now let's talk about lining him up. We need to go ahead and get him centered. There we go. How about that? I think that looks good. Let's grab my Teflon sheet. Now this is Stahl's Ultra Weed. And the reason that I chose this is because it does handle small detailed designs very, very good. And I'm pressing at 320 for 15 seconds. That's just kind of my standard go-to. Stahl's Ultra Weed does have like a wide range. So if you're pressing on more heat sensitive items, then you can go to a lower temperature. Just check out their website. There we go. And I'm just pressing twice because this is a 9x9 easy press. So I want to make sure that I cover the entire design. All right, so let's see what we got. All right, so there we go. All right, guys, so the panel canvas, it is a little bit hot, so I'm not going to pick it up for you, but this is what we're left with. So you can see mine is far from perfect. This is something I think will take a few tries for me to get down pat. I did have a few just little weeding mistakes, and then I had, you know, and like I said, this is my second try. I showed you guys how the first try came out. So this one is definitely a better weeding job, but just make sure that you choose a vinyl that takes detail really well. Make sure you keep a little craft knife handy and try to go relatively slow. It does take a long time to weed, but in the big scheme of things, just a few lessons that I learned was it is absolutely better to weed slow than to weed fast and potentially mess up your design. So, but guys, I really enjoyed it. I think this is a cool new project. It's a kind of a fad item, and hopefully you guys enjoy it too. So guys, how did you feel about our Spiral Betty designs? Now, of course, you know, I owned up, we did have a few mistakes along the way, but they're really, really fun, guys. I promise you will not regret trying this. And while, you know, using heat transfer vinyl and mistakes can be a little pricey, you know, using
quality adhesive vinyl would also work just as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the project today. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave those below. I love to hear from you guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. That way we can keep these projects coming. Perhaps you'll share with a crafty friend or give it a like. You know, all that support, I just really, really appreciate it. So I'm gonna wrap it up for today, guys, but thanks again, and we'll see you next time.